Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Billy lashes out at Jill after two scammers agree to launch a covert attack. Disclose that while Billy Abbott shoots back at Jill Abbott, two conspirators will consent to a surprise attack. Let's discuss the upcoming strategy session and conflict that YNR fans may expect to see throughout the town. They will now meet to decide their next course of action after Jack Abbott and Victor Newman forged an alliance against Kane Ashby. Although they can't be sure, Victor and Jack are optimistic that Jill will be able to guide Kane in a less harmful direction. Since Kane is a wild card, it's best to have several strategies ready. In order to disrupt Kane's intentions in the upcoming episodes, Victor and Jack will collaborate to develop a sneak assault tactic. Billy, who has been injured, will retaliate against Jill, who is angry about how her son has treated her. Billy would claim that she damaged him first with all the Chancellor drama, but Jill was deeply hurt when he pulled her out of his life. When Jill lost faith in Billy and eventually sold the business to Victor, Billy felt humiliated. Since then, Billy has shown us a vindictive side, so there will be a great deal of suffering and animosity to resolve. Kane might encourage Jill and Billy to focus on their deep-seated love for one another at Friday's performance. Although it appears that Kane will mediate Billy and Jill's argument, he will ultimately have to answer Jill's inquiries on his pursuit of Genoa City dominance. Billy might eventually learn that Sally Spectra is requesting that Jill invest in Abbott Communications. Since Sally went behind his back to get money from his estranged mother, that can cause Billy to lose his temper. He will react to Audra Charles's attempt to win him back over with Nate Hastings. Despite Audra's heartfelt appeal, it seems Nate will turn her down again since he doesn't trust her. Jack and Victor collaborate, Billy and Jill disagree. Who will be standing at the end of the day? Run in two separate directions because Billy doesn't know how to stop while he's behind his mother, and Victor is prepared to forgive Jack for saving his wife's life for as long as it takes to further Victor's goals. Victor promised to ruin Jack. While Victor was unaware, no man was going to stand by Nikki and survive. However, it turned out that Jack could help Victor in some way. Jack will want to, Victor is certain. I mean, who wouldn't want to help Victor? After everything, Victor is in danger from Kane. And to Jack, too. However, Victor is the subject of this. Isn't it incredibly kind of Victor to set aside his grudge against Jack and his whole family and let Jack carry out his wishes? Until Victor decides he is no longer needed. Then Victor will resume his playground taunts like a third grader. Have they struck a deal? No, hold on, Jack, don't respond to that. Victor is aware that they do. Have you got that? Once more, Sally, who received Soap Hub's Performer of the Month award, turned to Jill for assistance in saving Billy. Jill expressed gratitude for Sally's words and agreed to continue the conversation when she got to Genoa City. Jill is here now, though. Nevertheless, Jill's younger son had one of his well-known tantrums before she and Sally are able to save Billy from himself. Does he never go a day without seizing an opportunity? Billy Abbott has never been one to bottle up his emotions, and in the newest explosive turn of events in Genoa City, fans will see him lash out at Jill Abbott with a level of rage that shakes the Chancellor Winter's legacy to its core, all while two scammers secretly agree to launch a covert attack that could destabilize every power player in town, setting up a high-stakes strategy session unlike anything YNR fans have witnessed in recent memory, because as Victor Newman and Jack Abbott put their animosity aside to target Kane Ashby, the ripple effects spread across the entire canvas, forcing mother and son, allies and enemies, and schemers and victims into a tangled web of resentment, betrayal, and uneasy truces. Jill, trying to maintain her composure as Billy shoots verbal daggers at her, insists she has always acted in his best interests, even when selling the business to Victor broke his heart, but Billy throws back that Jill damaged him first, pointing to years of perceived abandonment, manipulation, and Chancellor drama that left him feeling like an outsider in his own family, while Jill, wounded and visibly shaken by her son's relentless attack, insists that she only made her decision to salvage what remained of the empire, but Billy can't let go of the humiliation, especially since Victor and Jack now seem more united than ever in plotting against Kane, a man everyone agrees is a wild card, unpredictable and dangerous enough to warrant multiple strategies, yet slippery enough to exploit every crack in his opponent's armor. Meanwhile, the two conspirators in the shadows, whose identities remain under wraps for now, consent to a surprise attack that could blindside the Abbotts, the Newmans, and even Jill herself, giving YNR fans reason to fear that this covert agreement will bring nothing but chaos in the weeks to come, particularly as Victor and Jack begin hammering out the specifics of their alliance, Victor reminding Jack at every turn that he is only tolerating their truce for as long as it serves his goals, and Jack, begrudging but pragmatic, conceding that Kane poses enough of a threat to warrant setting aside old grudges, though in the back of his mind he knows Victor will revert to playground-level taunts and sabotage the minute the truce no longer benefits him, because that is the Victor Newman way. As the stage is set for this clandestine strategy session, Billy's fury only grows, escalating from verbal jabs to full-blown tirades as he accuses Jill of never truly believing in him, of undermining his confidence at every opportunity, and of siding with Victor, Jack, or even Kane rather than trusting her own son, and Jill, who once prided herself on being able to handle anything thrown her way, finds herself breaking under the weight of Billy's accusations, desperately wishing to restore some semblance of their fractured bond, yet unable to deny her own culpability in past decisions, especially when Billy reminds her how it felt to be pushed out of Chancellor and to watch her hand over power to Victor, the very man who has relished every chance to torment their family. At the same time, Kane Ashby inserts himself into the fray, playing the unexpected mediator, urging Jill and Billy to focus on their deep-seated love for one another, even if their relationship is strained beyond repair. But fans know Kane's motives are never pure, and while he may preach reconciliation, he is simultaneously positioning himself for Genoa City dominance, a move Jill won't ignore for long as she presses Kane on his true intentions, demanding answers about his schemes and his long-term vision for power. Yet Kane is nothing if not evasive, offering just enough truth to seem cooperative while concealing the more dangerous aspects of his agenda. All the while, Billy's world threatens to spiral even further out of control when he discovers that Sally Spectra, in her desperation to secure Abbott Communications' future, has gone behind his back to request an investment from Jill, and this revelation ignites another round of fury from Billy, who interprets the move as a betrayal, a calculated undercutting of his leadership by the two women closest to his professional life, driving him into a tempest of insecurity and rage that Sally cannot easily soothe, especially since Jill, recognizing Sally's tenacity, has already expressed gratitude for her intervention and agreed to continue the discussion once she returns to Genoa City, leaving Billy cornered and seething at the thought of being excluded from critical decisions about his own company. And if that weren't enough, Audra Charles re-emerges with a heartfelt plea, hoping to rekindle her connection with Billy, but Nate Hastings, still wary of her manipulations and unwilling to expose himself to more heartbreak, shuts her down again, leaving Audra frustrated and potentially vulnerable to making more reckless moves, while Billy, caught between Audra's overtures and Sally's betrayal, grows increasingly unstable, channeling his frustration into more venomous outbursts directed at Jill, who finds herself wondering whether her son's tantrums will ever end, whether he will ever see beyond his own sense of grievance to the sacrifices she has made, and whether their relationship can survive the toxic cycle of love and resentment that has defined it for decades. Yet even as mother and son implode, Victor and Jack press forward with their uneasy collaboration, quietly building a tactical strike against Kane, convinced that surprise is their only weapon against such a slippery opponent. And while Victor insists he is extending extraordinary generosity by setting aside his vendetta against Jack, reminding anyone who will listen that Jack's saving of Nikki's life earned him a brief reprieve, fans know that this truce has an expiration date, that Victor will inevitably turn on Jack the moment the Abbott patriarch ceases to be useful. But for now, the alliance holds, and Kane, despite his bravado, senses the storm gathering against him, prompting him to double down on his own covert moves and to exploit the chaos erupting between Billy and Jill, calculating that the more fractured their bond becomes, the easier it will be for him to seize power. As the conspirators' covert agreement looms in the background, promising a surprise attack that could unravel all of Victor and Jack's careful planning, Sally continues to walk the fine line between ally and betrayer, Jill wrestles with the guilt of hurting her son even as she defends her decisions, and Billy, ever the wounded child in a man's body, lashes out with a fury that shocks even those who know him best, leaving Genoa City on the edge of an eruption, because the truth is that everyone, from Victor and Jack to Kane and Jill to Sally and Audra, has secrets, agendas, and grudges, and when those combustible elements collide in the coming episodes, fans can expect betrayals, breakdowns, and bombshells that will change the Abbott, Newman, Chancellor, and Ashby families forever, forcing everyone to ask the ultimate question: when the smoke clears from the covert attack, the retaliations, and the family warfare, who will still be standing, and who will be left shattered in the ashes of Genoa City's most explosive feud? As tensions escalate in Genoa City, the fallout from Billy Abbott's venomous lashing out at Jill Abbott begins to ripple outward like shockwaves through the Chancellor and Abbott dynasties, leaving allies unsettled and enemies quietly delighted, because Billy, in his fury, has not only burned bridges with his mother but also positioned himself as a liability to the very power plays meant to safeguard their legacy, and while Jill struggles to maintain composure in the face of his searing accusations, she cannot escape the sting of his words nor the undeniable truth that her choices, selling the business to Victor, handing over control during critical moments, and at times dismissing Billy's instincts, played a pivotal role in creating the resentful, self-destructive man now standing before her, his anger spilling over like a dam that has finally cracked after years of pressure, and yet, beneath her defensive exterior, Jill aches with the unspoken love she has always carried for her son, even if it is tangled up in guilt, regret, and frustration. Meanwhile, Victor Newman and Jack Abbott's tentative collaboration grows more complicated by the hour as they meet in hushed strategy sessions, both men eyeing each other warily, Victor masking his grudging respect with his trademark arrogance and Jack cloaking his distrust with icy diplomacy, and though they have agreed to pool resources against Kane Ashby, their alliance remains a fragile construct, more a weapon of convenience than a true truce, because Victor has already begun calculating the precise moment when he can pivot and use Jack's cooperation to his own advantage, while Jack, no fool, is meticulously keeping records of every concession and promise made, determined to be ready when Victor inevitably turns on him. Kane, ever the opportunist, senses the shifting tides and begins subtly exploiting the cracks in the Abbott-Newman front, whispering in ears, planting seeds of doubt, and manipulating allies to keep them guessing about his next move. Yet what Kane does not realize is that the two shadowy conspirators, whose whispered agreement to launch a covert attack has yet to be revealed, may be just as much a threat to him as they are to Victor, Jack, and Jill, for their plan is not one of selective sabotage but of all-encompassing destruction, a strike designed to topple every titan in Genoa City simultaneously, leaving the board wiped clean for their own ascendancy. And while their identities remain cloaked in secrecy, their plotting adds a sinister undercurrent to the already volatile atmosphere, suggesting that no amount of planning, no matter how strategic, will be enough to anticipate the chaos to come. In the middle of all this, Sally Spectra's maneuver to secure Jill's investment for Abbott Communications without Billy's knowledge becomes a lightning rod for fresh conflict, with Billy feeling betrayed not only by his mother but also by the woman he believed was in his corner, his anger morphing into a combustible mix of jealousy, humiliation, and desperation as he accuses Sally of aligning with Jill to undermine him, though Sally, ever pragmatic, argues that she acted out of necessity, believing that saving the company was worth bruising Billy's pride, but her defense falls on deaf ears, for Billy's wounded ego cannot accept any logic that frames him as anything less than central to the equation, and the clash drives yet another wedge between them, feeding Billy's spiral as he turns to destructive outlets, lashing out at allies and enemies alike in a futile attempt to reclaim control. Jill, meanwhile, tries to compartmentalize her own heartache, finding herself torn between admiration for Sally's boldness and fear that her intervention may have deepened Billy's instability beyond repair, while Kane, watching from the sidelines, smirks at the dysfunction, knowing that every fracture within the Abbott-Chancellor alliance is an opening for him to slip further into dominance, even as Jill corners him in a tense exchange, pressing for answers about his supposed efforts to mediate her conflict with Billy, demanding clarity about his intentions, but Kane, slippery as ever, evades her inquiries, offering platitudes about family and unity while quietly plotting to use Jill's maternal guilt and Billy's resentment as pawns in his chess game for power. And just when the firestorm seems unmanageable, Audra Charles re-enters the narrative, determined to claw her way back into relevance by making an emotional appeal to Billy, reminding him of their connection and urging him to see her as the ally he needs. But Nate Hastings once again rejects her overtures, refusing to place his trust in someone whose track record of manipulation has left too many scars, and his dismissal sends Audra spiraling into a dangerous mixture of bitterness and recklessness, which may soon position her as a wild card just as volatile as Kane himself, particularly if she chooses to ally with one of the secret conspirators to prove her worth and exact revenge on those who have written her off. Yet even as these interpersonal battles unfold, the looming alliance of Victor and Jack continues to dominate the city's political chessboard, with Victor using every opportunity to remind Jack of his supposed debt, reiterating that Jack's saving of Nikki's life is the only reason he tolerates his presence at the table, and Jack biting back his fury to maintain a veneer of civility, privately reminding himself that he is only playing along to protect his family and neutralize Kane, though deep down, he knows Victor is already scripting the betrayal to come, and when that betrayal lands, it will be just as devastating to the Abbotts as any of Kane's schemes. But the real danger, the one nobody yet anticipates, is the covert attack being orchestrated by the two hidden schemers, who bide their time and sharpen their knives, waiting for the precise moment when the Abbott-Newman alliance and the Abbott-Chancellor war are at their most vulnerable, so that their strike will land with maximum impact, leveling the playing field in one fell swoop and leaving Genoa City gasping in shock. In the meantime, Jill remains trapped in the eye of the storm, forced to navigate the dual heartbreak of Billy's unrelenting anger and the knowledge that her every decision is being scrutinized by Victor, Jack, and Kane alike. Each man expecting her to tilt the balance in his favor, but Jill, though battered, is not broken, and fans know she has the grit to survive, even if her maternal instincts clash with her business acumen, because at the end of the day, Jill Abbott has always been a fighter, and if Billy, Kane, and the rest of Genoa City's power brokers think they can manipulate her into submission, they may find themselves outmatched by a woman who, even in the darkest moments, refuses to relinquish her crown. Still, as Friday's climactic performance approaches, Kane's role as mediator grows more questionable, Sally's loyalty more fragile, Audra's motives more unpredictable, Victor and Jack's alliance more tenuous, and Billy's tantrums more dangerous, setting the stage for a cataclysmic collision where every grudge, every betrayal, and every secret comes to light. And when the dust settles, Genoa City will be forced to confront a sobering reality. The covert attack was never about one family, one company, or one rivalry. It was about dismantling the entire power structure, and the question haunting every fan will be not just who survives the fallout, but whether any of them can ever recover from the devastation unleashed by their own hubris, insecurities, and inability to trust the people they claim to love. The closer the storm brews in Genoa City, the more every move feels like a chess piece sliding into position, and as Jill Abbott reels from Billy Abbott's relentless accusations and her own guilty conscience, the cracks in her once unshakable composure begin to show. Though she refuses to crumble entirely because she knows that both Victor Newman and Jack Abbott are counting on her presence as a stabilizing force in the chaos surrounding Kane Ashby, yet Billy cannot see that bigger picture. Blinded instead by his fury and humiliation, striking out at his mother as though she were the root of every betrayal in his life, and while Jill tries desperately to remind him of her love, to plead that everything she's ever done was meant to preserve their family's legacy, Billy fires back that she's always chosen business, always chosen power, always chosen control over him, leaving Jill gutted but unwilling to show weakness in front of her son, who is spiraling towards self-destruction with every word. Meanwhile, the alliance between Victor and Jack grows increasingly tense, with Victor's smug reminders of Jack's temporary usefulness grating on Jack's pride, but both men know they cannot afford to splinter now, not when Kane is watching, waiting, and scheming from the shadows, eager to seize on any misstep. And yet Kane's quiet smirk betrays his confidence that their alliance is doomed to implode without his interference, because he understands better than anyone that Victor cannot resist the urge to double-cross and Jack cannot resist the urge to fight back, so their partnership is a ticking time bomb he only has to outlast. And then there's Sally Spectra, caught in the crossfire of Abbott dysfunction, who thought securing Jill's investment was the smart move but who now finds herself vilified by Billy, distrusted by Jill, and scrutinized by Victor and Jack alike. Her boldness suddenly a liability instead of an asset, and while she steels herself to push forward, fans can see the strain as she realizes she may have lost Billy's trust forever. Audra Charles, meanwhile, refuses to fade quietly into the background, her rejection by Nate Hastings fueling a reckless determination to reinsert herself into the power game, whispering to anyone who will listen that Billy is unstable, Jill is weak, and Kane is ripe for manipulation, her dangerous blend of bitterness and ambition putting her on a collision course with the conspirators, whose covert plan finally begins to take shape as they prepare their strike, one so carefully orchestrated that not even Victor or Jack, two men who pride themselves on being 10 steps ahead, can see it coming, because the brilliance of the scheme lies in its simplicity: divide the players, pit family against family, and unleash chaos at the very moment everyone believes they're in control, which means that Billy's outbursts, Jill's guilt, Sally's betrayal, Kane's smirks, and Victor and Jack's fragile alliance are all ingredients in a recipe for disaster, and when the conspirators finally pull the trigger, Genoa City will not just be rocked, it will be forever changed, leaving the audience holding their breath as the Friday cliffhanger looms with the terrifying possibility that the Abbott-Chancellor legacy, the Newman Empire, and even Billy and Jill's already broken relationship may not survive the covert attack waiting just off-screen.